Good morning. Welcome to the Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee. First order of business before we get started is attendance.
Mary Lou McKillen.
Here.
Jane Mitchell-Pate.
Here.
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Erica Wygonick.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Stephanie Casella, Planning Department.
Here.
Barbara Sadek.
Yes.
And Councilor Annie Hopkins.
Hello.
Before we get into the meat of the agenda, we have some basic housekeeping to do. The election of a chair and vice chair. And for chair, I nominate Councilor Hopkins. Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And vice chair, I would like to Erica Wygonick nominate.
Second.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Madam Chair.
You're gonna shade out the name tag.
Oh, yeah, no, we got here.
Oh,
Make it
very
official.
official.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Good luck.
Sorry, there's a bedroom.
There we go, right there.
Oh, no.
The name tag doesn't
The
fit.
name tag was,
Okay. And I'll need help with this. This is my first time sharing anything, and I thank you all for your patience as my toddler dictated my schedule this morning. So, all right, I guess we're on number 3, financial report.
Okay, I've got it up here on the screen, and I will also share it.
Move to accept.
Second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to public comments. We have 15 minutes for this, so if we can keep it nice, 2 minutes per person, that would be much appreciated because we do value what everyone has to say and we also value your time. So as the mayor always says, brevity is appreciated. Anybody? And please introduce yourselves.
Let's get it going. Good morning, Tyler Garza, 62 McKinley. First, a reminder that automobile crashes are not accidents. They are systemic failures. If you want an example of systemic, look at the 1950s engineering that continues to be promoted by DPW with regard to speed limits. Regarding the residential access parking program pilot, please activate this pilot on streets and lots adjacent to the downtown core as listed in the original proposal. The program is a critical tool to allow for dense and affordable downtown housing without creating existing resident parking concerns. This was the goal stated by the mayor on September 8th, 2025. The program is a clear recommendation on page 46.7 of the 2025 parking study. It is not Portsmouth's taxpayers' responsibility to provide free or subsidized parking for workers or visitors. The program meters a scarce resource so that people who want parking can find it, and balances incentives so that a range of housing units appealing to all socioeconomic groups can continue to be brought to market. We do not want downtown workers or friends driving here. We want them living here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Can afford it. Hello.
I'm Jeff Randall. I live at 80 Diamond Drive. And 2 quick items. The first item is, are the speed radar signs in this city programmable? Does anybody have access to that information? Are they?
Yeah.
They are. Then I propose that we change the programming from 5 miles an hour above the posted speed limit to something at or below the posted speed limit. Because if you're trying to have traffic calming on, say, Woodbury Avenue, but we've chosen not to do traffic calming measures, a variety of them, but we have posted those. By giving away 5 miles an hour, the psychology is that people hit those lights at 35 instead of 25, and they're already creating a traffic nuisance. So why don't we bring them down to the posted speed limit or lower, if they're programmable? The second item is real quick when it comes for later. When the roads get cleaner and drier and the snow decides to go away and we're doing street sweeping, as an avid bicyclist, I would propose that the city figure out a way to prioritize anything that's listed as a bike route for cleaning, for street cleaning. The example is middle coming in under the trees, and they're a mess for weeks sometimes. So my suggestion is that we add extra street sweeping priority to those particular items. All right? Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jeff.
Think snow. Oh, just kidding.
Good morning, I'm Bill Lyons, 62 Mendham Avenue, and I'd like to talk about the parking pilot. I enthusiastically support key elements of the pilot, particularly the shift from free to paid parking, but have a few specific suggestions and observations. My perspective is as a transportation planner, co-chair of the Portsmouth Sustainability Committee, and past member of city advisory groups on the bike pedestrian plans, the new update, and the Blue Ribbon Committee on Transportation Policy. A core transportation planning principle is that free parking is ill-advised when the parking supply is limited and demand is high and growing, as forecast in the parking study. Parking on city curbs and lots is a valuable and limited public asset. A shift to paid parking in the pilot zone will reduce car trips and traffic as residents are incentivized to shift some trips to walking, biking, using public transit, or will combine trip purposes for a single trip. The city's climate action plan identifies vehicle trips as the dominant source of Portsmouth's greenhouse gas emissions at 60% and recommends strategies to reduce fossil fuel car trips through shifts to public transit, walking, and biking. Free parking is a subsidy from property taxpayers and non-drivers to residents, visitors, or employees who drive and park. Uncollected parking fees are made up for ultimately in higher property taxes and reduced revenue for city investments. At $2 an hour, downtown parking is underpriced. Assuming pilot spaces are worth perhaps $1.50 an hour, 3 hours of free parking is worth $5, 10 hours, $15. I live a mile from downtown. Although I have a car, I normally walk or bike to the library, shop, or for meetings. Cost and availability of parking is, of course, a consideration. If there's reliable free parking in the pilot zone, my neighbors and I will drive more often, resulting in new trips and more emissions. I support parking subsidies based on sound public policy and transparent discussion of trade-offs between costs, benefits, and effects on other city goals, including reduced traffic, greenhouse gas emissions, and affordability. The city currently provides generous discounts for residents through the app and the bargain $3 daily charge for employees at the city garage. Both operate well. I share the concern about affordability for low-wage employees and parking challenges for residents. Before the benefit of free parking is extended to some or all downtown employees, there should be a clear discussion of costs and beneficiaries, including employers who would have reduced pressure to increase competitive pay or provide staff parking. What would the annual cost be for taxpayers made up through property tax to provide free parking to low-wage or alternatively all downtown workers? And what is the administrative complexity? Like all policy decisions, the pilot has to involve trade-offs. Rather than providing free parking to residents and possibly employees, I suggest the following. 1, expand the solid evaluation of costs and beneficiaries to consider impact on vehicle trips, traffic, and emissions. 2, consider charging non-residents $1.50 an hour and residents 50 or 75 cents per hour. Set a time limit to encourage turnover and avoid using scarce spaces for car storage. Rather than providing free parking for employees, explore discount options with employers or developers to reduce parking burden on employees and residents. 5th, enforce free parking for residents at the library and playgrounds and for library and middle school staff. 6, longer term, revisit ideas for resident parking permits. 7, longer term, approach parking as a key component of Portsmouth's multimodal transportation system. Recognize the role that walking, biking, and public transit play in reducing parking demand and bringing residents downtown, including those without cars who prefer not to drive. The current CIP includes projects to evaluate options to expand parking and public transit, This provides a great opportunity for some multimodal thinking, as does the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Desjardins. I'm a former Portsmouth resident who recently moved to Exeter. I work downtown locally at Portsmouth Architects. I will not read the letter that I wrote you all, but I wanted to just acknowledge hopefully you all had the chance to read that. And thank you, Eric, for distributing that for me. I'm here to represent out-of-town downtown workers like myself in the deliberations this committee will be undertaking for the proposed parking program. I encourage you to put yourselves in the shoes of someone who cannot afford to live in Portsmouth, but works downtown as a barback, a barista, retail staff, or in an office like myself. It is challenging for people like us to keep up with the sheer amount of changes the city goes through, and sometimes we do not feel welcome to provide our input as non-residents. I'm only here because I keep up with the local news since I'm an architect in town. Even I was taken back with how quickly this program was put together and how the initial versions neglected the downtown workforce. If you go around and interview the downtown workforce, I bet the vast majority do not even know that this program is being proposed. My letter touches on a lot of my perspective on this issue, but I want you all to remember that the workforce downtown has a voice. Please do not forget about us. We contribute to the city in many different ways. Not the same as individuals like teachers, but when you allow teachers to continue to park as part of this program for free and then charge downtown workers, it highlights a selective process, neglecting people who make the same or even less money than the average teacher. Treating downtown workers in this way without engaging them first makes them feel undervalued. Trust me, I understand the importance of teachers. I am not devaluing their contributions to this town. I am one myself back at my college down in Boston. I'm here today to encourage you to first study these areas by engaging with those who actually use the parking first. Perform a study on what implications might be first before arbitrarily assigning a value to the downtown workers and charging for parking. Based on my letter, it seems like daytime workforce is probably the majority of these spaces already. Who knows, maybe I'm incorrect. Please remember that downtown workers contribute to the city as well. We might not be residents, but a barista keeps you caffeinated in the morning while I deal with buildings. I conclude with this question. How does charging downtown workers who need to be here for work anyways successfully free up parking for residents and improve the city of Portsmouth? Thank you all for your time.
Colin Scholler, 30 Chauncey. I support the resident parking program. We have a limited supply of parking that locals, workers, residents, and visitors alike are forced to share. Our demand is high and our supply very limited. But in order for this program to actually work and not just push the problem down the road, we need to provide real alternatives. Just charging more for parking or adding spots is a losing game to the elastic demand that is driving. We currently have some alternatives, but they're pretty weak, namely Coast, our buses. There's good coverage and service for those who need it, but for those who have alternatives, it's insufficient. The Coast doesn't receive enough funding to allow it to run frequently enough, late enough, or even cashless, which are all limiting factors preventing it from reaching a critical mass for those who have alternatives. The pilot program won't generate enough revenue to reverse that, but it would be a start, and as this program matures and others like it, it'll get there. So I support this program, but we owe it to everyone affected to use all revenue to improve our best long-term alternative and improve our funding to the coast routes that connect Portsmouth. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone on, I don't know if anyone's on Zoom. No?
All right.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. Moving on to presentations, we have no presentations today. New business. The resident access parking program pilot referred to committee by the city council.
If I may, Madam Chair, the Deputy City Manager, Carl Weber, is here, along with our parking staff, Mike Assad and Parking Director Ben Fletcher. So with that, I'll pass it over. I'd introduce the Deputy City Manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Thanks so
Hello.
much, and thank you everyone for having us in today to talk about this. Right out of the gate, you'll see that we have modified some things since the original proposal that went to the council. One of the things that we mentioned as we went through this with both the rec board, the council, and the chamber is, all feedback's a gift, so we appreciate all the gifts we've received along the way as proposing this. One of the goals here was part of a report back from the council that they wanted us to find an option that would prioritize some residents and see if we can increase the availability for residents in certain areas. And so in order to do that, monetizing for non-residents helps the turnover of those spaces, and so that we hopefully can deal with the limited demand that's in that area. And so we really see this, one of the reasons we scaled it back was there was a lot of feedback around lots and other feedback we got from the rec board, and you'll see that there's an addition in here that we added for the downtown workforce program as well. We really consider this to be sort of a proof of concept. The other reason why it might be helpful to make this smaller than our original scope is just to prove this out. We want to do, the reason it's a pilot, we want to test this out, we want to gather research along the way and see if this results in what we hope it does, which is a little bit more availability of spots. What we notice is in some of these really high traffic areas, because it's not monetized, folks will park there and stay there for very long periods of time. The monetization tends to lead to some turnover in the spots that are there. So if you look at, this is a different approach than what we've done before. We learned some lessons about hang tags and sort of trying to manage all that. We really tried to make this as simple as possible for residents, which essentially is if you come in and register your plates with either the tax office or the parking office, if you're a resident, you can park in these areas at no charge and no work on your behalf. You don't need to use the app, you don't need to start a session. If you're registered, you just park in all those areas. For non-residents, it would be $1 an hour, and that could be through the app. And we are looking to place one kiosk down on Parrott Ave, just because we know that some people may not have the app, but that's an area that we typically might have a little more traffic. So we're going to look at putting a kiosk down there as well. And before this begins, and again, we're looking for feedback to make sure we get this right as we start, there'd be a big outreach campaign. There's not a rush to do this. We want to make sure that we get it right. There'd be a lot of information. There'd be friendly reminders beforehand, lots of sort of signage going up, and lots of social media outreach to make sure that everybody really understands what we're trying to accomplish here. You'll see that we adjusted the roads in here. There was some misunderstanding. It's Parrott Ave, the roadway only, not the lot. That lot would still be free. And so just to make sure, that was a little misunderstanding, I think, with the public sometimes around the Parrott Ave lot. This was just the roadway. You'll see that there's various streets in here. And Parrott Ave, we decided after meeting with the chamber and some of the restaurant owners downtown, right now we have the downtown workforce program, which really is just limited to the garage. And the reason it's limited to the garage is folks can buy 20 stickers per month. They get a ticket, they can put the sticker over it. It allows them to park for 10 hours for $3. The reason it's there is we've got the gates, we've got tickets. We're trying to use a little bit of an experiment on how do we expand that somewhere else. And we thought Parrott Ave would be a good opportunity for us to try using the app and have folks come in and register for the downtown workforce program here, and they could use the app and pay the 30 cents an hour, which for a 10-hour would be a comparable cost of what the Foundry is. One of the things that we heard from the chamber is the Foundry is great, but it's a little further away from some of the businesses that are a little closer to the Parrott Ave area. So we thought at least trying this out would give us an opportunity to see what that is. We think that monetizing for non-residents may give more spaces available to that downtown workforce. And so 30 cents an hour, comparable price to what we have in the Foundry Garage. If you look in here, we tried to really look at the lessons learned from the previous program and try something that would allow us to start testing out this proof of concept over time. Our goal, as we even stated to the council, was we're gonna collect all the data, we're gonna report back quarterly to the council, and really say, okay, this is what we've noticed. Is it working the way that we intended? Are there any unintended consequences? In this limited pilot that we're proposing, we may see bleeding into other lots. And if that's the case, we'll certainly come back and report on that and say, here's some options to deal with that. If it bleeds into other neighborhoods or streets, we'll sort of report on that as well and offer some suggestions on how to do that. You'll see that we did the financial analysis. It costs a little bit more in enforcement, but we are anticipating some revenue. It sort of is a revenue gain or neutral, which is what we really hope for in a pilot. We don't want it to cost extra. We really want to make sure that this thing can pay for itself. The other benefit of having a pilot that can pay for itself is if you expand into another area, it might cover the cost of expansion into another area as well. We tried to give you an outline of the timeline of implementation, what our goal would be. And I think there's some folks that said, why was this rushed? We're not rushing at all. It's a pilot. We're offering it as a draft. We're getting lots of feedback along the way, and any feedback that you have for us, we're more than happy to take back and bring back to the council probably sometime in March to talk about what we might propose, this or something a little bit different. But we really tried to sort of hear the concerns that folks had, and it was because of those conversations and some of the concerns on the downtown workforce that we came up with the idea of finding a way to do the pilot on Parrott Ave, which I think is helpful, because right now we're really limited to the garage, and we're going to try this out on a street, and if it works in the street, we might be able to expand it to other places. And we're happy to answer any questions that you have, and we just appreciate, going through this with you. And, we tried to put some maps in here as well so you can see where we're talking about. It's really a much more limited, but we think, again, when it comes to a pilot, it's nice to walk before you run and make sure that your assumptions that you're making early on prove out before you expand into other areas.
Thank you, Carl. We'll open for discussion. Yes, Mark?
What does it entail to register? What do you need for documents when you come downtown?
When you register your vehicle to renew the registration at the tax office.
Okay.
It's very simple.
So it's in conjunction with registering your vehicle?
Correct.
That's when you want to have people do it?
They send us them.
Or you can come in at any time, have your vehicle registration, your ID, and we can register you in the program.
Well, that's what I was leading to. So if you just need your ID, is there any way that the city IT department or public relations can put it online, the link? Put a link online, and then if someone has a smartphone or a computer at home or at work at their convenience. So what I'm thinking is that the residents, you want it to be as convenient as possible, because now there's gonna be a group out there that don't use smartphones, that don't have computers. They're gonna have to come down. There's a large population that at the convenience of their home or work, or because the city's not open on weekends, they might do that.
So we'll take a look at the online registration. Part of it is we want to make sure, if we're capturing your license and other information, we want to make sure how that's taken care of. But we could look at that.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about documents.
Yeah, right now it's fairly simple. You come in with your car registration, your ID, we just put you in the program. There were a couple, I think there's some misunderstanding on why don't we just have everybody who's a resident, why don't we have their plate number listed? The tax office can't share that with us because it's DMV protected information, but you can share that information with us. And so, but we'll certainly look at if we can make that a little easier as we roll this out.
Right.
It would be easy, we're trying to figure out other ways that you could do that online.
Right, and then you can upload documents, driver's license or tax cards.
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Thank you. I don't know who had their, Jane.
Hi. I had another question about this as well. I was also concerned about the ease of enrollment for residents and, again, making this as easy to use as possible. It's my understanding that many residents already have this information in the Park mobile app. Are we able to pull that over into the program or no?
So starting last year, we just started putting everybody's information So for the last year, we've already been doing that, just to have that information in the
So
system.
if you're in the resident program, you're in the Park Mobile, so you get the discount anyway. So it's
So if you registered in the last year, you wouldn't have to sign up.
it's the same list right now.
Okay, so the list has already started.
So
Okay.
essentially, when you come in and you say I'm a resident, it also puts you in the list for the resident in the Park Mobile.
If I could just clarify, he's referring to when you come in to register your vehicle, they ask you, do you want to get registered, do you want to be put on this list?
Mhm.
If you have said yes when you've done that, so we've already been doing that for 6 months, how long?
A year.
A year.
A year now.
So we've captured a lot of the folks already in terms of that database.
Yep.
But there are, as the deputy city manager indicated, there are some legal restrictions about sharing documents and putting, sensitive documents online, sending it back and forth. But we'll look into that and see how to make it as easy as possible for everybody.
Did that answer, or are you asking more, so like say I am enrolled for the resident discount parking right now in the Park Mobile app. Does that mean, do I have to do anything else to come into this pilot program? No? So once you're in the Park Mobile app as a resident discount, you'll be rolled over into this pilot program without any extra work?
If you did it within the last year.
Yes, okay.
Do we have a sense of like what percentage of residents are already on your existing list for the pilot?
Great question.
There,
You can
There's-
report back.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
well, I mean, there's about, I would guesstimate about 1,500 license plates in there right now. It's probably a little over 2,000 that are getting the discount, but there's probably about 1,500. And those are license plates, so there's people with 4 cars, so
Sure.
just to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's-
Barbara?
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask essentially the same question. It's still the same documents that one would bring to the parking office at the Foundry Garage?
Correct.
Okay, which was very simple.
Yeah, you can do it at the parking garage or you can do it at the tax office.
At the Foundry parking garage,
Yes,
not
the
Hanover
Foundry
parking garage, the Foundry parking garage.
There's the parking office there.
Yes, yes, that's where I went to register for Park Mobile in last year. Mark?
How about the scenario when someone's living here, then they move to another town, whether it's a tenant or a homeowner, they sell the home and leave. They still have the Park and Mobile app.
So that's why we were doing the registration annually now. So
Okay.
they'd have to register.
So I have a Park Mobile app, so in November, when my birthday month, I went down to register my vehicle. That was the time for me to update my Park Mobile app.
That would,
So if I wanted to use it today, I couldn't use it.
it's probably still in there if it's, because we were going 2 years, now we're changing it to a year with this.
Okay, so in 2026, you're changing it to a year.
Correct.
Okay.
That was part of the, part of when we brought it to the tax office.
Yeah.
So when you're there annually to register your car, you can also do that at the same time.
I think the other question is, go ahead, Ben, I'm sorry.
Tying it to your plate renewal means that if you move away and you're gonna renew your plates in some other city or town, then your license plate would drop off that list.
Right.
You could still use Park Mobile, but you would no longer be part of the list that gets that series of choices when you use the app.
It's more of a sensitive issue when you talk about, discounts for workers. So somebody gets a job, they're there for 6 weeks and they quit, or they decide not to work there anymore. How do you monitor that?
So we talked a little bit about, right now, with the stickers, they come in and they can buy 20 stickers, and if they left, they'd still use those stickers. We're thinking about doing this as a quarterly registration for the downtown workforce, and which is really designed for hourly wage employees, not salaried employees. And we're looking at, can we do that? Is there a way to do that online as well? We're trying to make that a little simpler for them as well, but it would be a quarterly. We're trying to make it not too burdensome as well, especially during the pilot. We'll try it out, see how it works, and we'll have, part of the goal is let this run for a year, and we'll have a lot of data to come back and say, this is what we learned. This worked out well, this didn't. Hey, we think we can make this easier. This is what else we heard from all these different stakeholders, and here's how we might go to improve it and make it more permanent.
I think you've covered a couple of questions I had, so I'm gonna recap what I heard just to make sure. So the pilot's anticipated to run for about a year, it sounds like?
Yes.
We're gonna validate resident parking annually. We're gonna validate employees roughly quarterly, give or take. I had questions in 2 other categories now. One thing I noted is that it sounds like once an employee is validated in the program, they kind of have access to that rate all the time. I think a difference with a sticker is like you have to use a sticker. You're like committing to being there all day. So there's some amount of, this is a work day, I want to use this, right? Whereas if it's 30 cents to park anytime they come in town, that's true all the time now, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the, again, why we're only doing a really limited pilot for that. We've talked to the app company and say, hey, we'd like to find a better solution for that, but they don't have that yet, but they're thinking about it. So this is our best attempt to expand beyond a garage. The garage is easy. We got gates and tickets and stickers and all that, but I can't put gates on roads or parking lots and just be.
Track like how much it gets used by
We will. So we'll be able to see how often those were. And so if we see, 90 sessions in 90 days, we'll be like, okay, that's a good data point to sort of understand what's happening. And so, we've thought about that. That's the other reason why this is very limited, just that street.
Yeah.
And I guess, I'm sorry, I guess to that point, I personally am of the opinion that
It's not bad.
I wouldn't mind.
I just think we need to know what we're.
Right, I wouldn't mind that workforce can come back in for dinner and have cheap parking. Like, I think that would be a benefit, a thank you of, yes, you're a non-resident, but we value your work here in Portsmouth.
Just
Cheap
knowing
parking,
what we're doing, I think
that's a
is-
great clarification point, though. And did you have one more? I'm sorry.
I guess in contrast, it sounds like the teachers are only eligible to park during the school day. And I guess I find that I'm a little concerned about that because I feel like a lot of teachers have to stay after school to help with stuff, and a good teacher is usually the one that's doing that, and I feel like we shouldn't be I don't know what I think about what's appropriate in terms of who should be paying and who shouldn't be paying, but if we think it's important that teachers should be able to park for free, I feel like they need to be able to park for free however long they're at work that day, which isn't necessarily 8:30 to 3:15. I think most teachers are either getting there early or staying late, or, they're the mentor for the drama part, whatever it is, like, it's not limited to just that really finite period of time.
I think that's a great observation. Part of it is originally we had that lot by the middle school as part of the program. We took that out. What we realized is because there isn't always enough space there for teachers, sometimes they're ending up to park on Parrot Ave, so we wanted to make sure we accommodate. And it's sort of for the workday and events and other things they might be doing. So we're working with the middle school a little on that. So we would be certainly, sensitive to they're there for working. It's really because what our concern was if we monetize Parrot Ave and we don't consider them, sometimes they have to park there because there's not enough spaces in the lot. So essentially, they just don't have enough spaces. So I think we'll be really sensitive to that. And we're working with them on the details on how that would roll out.
There'd definitely be a buffer on that.
Yeah.
Just one point of clarification, just so the general public doesn't confuse the pilot area with the existing metered parking areas of the city. This downtown employee parking program does not apply to the existing metered spaces. It is purely in this Parrot Avenue area, and so so people shouldn't get all excited and say, oh, I can park anywhere downtown now for 30 cents. That's not the case.
And this whole pilot is outside of the downtown district anyway. It's really about areas where, especially some of the residential concerns were around not being able to find spots in their own neighborhoods because of out-of-towners parking there.
It kind of seems like logistically it's easier to just let teachers park there all the time instead of having like 2 hours a day that they're not allowed to park there. That just sounds like very complicated implementation, but you know your system better than I do. Yeah.
I think Mark and then Mary Lou.
Has there already been any, with the city and the Chamber of Commerce and the downtown business owners, and has there already been any discussions with employers offering as a benefit parking? I mean, it's a sensitive issue. I mean, I'm self-employed all my adult life, so as a business owner, I don't own a brick and mortar store, I'm a contractor. But there has to be some kind of, in the future now, has to be some kind of conversation with the Chamber of Commerce, downtown business owners, when it comes to encouraging them to offer whatever parking they can
Yeah.
offer.
Novacure does. My husband works for Novacure, so he buys the book of stickers for $60 a month. You know, gets he parks at the Foundry, walks to work, and then turns in his receipts, and Novacure reimburses his parking expense.
I just think as a taxpayer, I'm a taxpayer, so I'm a resident, but I own property. It'd be, and I'm financially conservative, so it'd be advantageous to start putting that onto the employer when you're figuring it out.
So one of the things that we are looking at is as we look at this, the downtown workforce sort of parking down the road, are there ways to make it easier for employers to pay for that? Certainly they're willing to, they can reimburse their employees now, but certainly we're looking at, one of the questions that got asked at the council meeting was, can we make it easy for employers to purchase that? So we're looking at that as well. And I think in the long term, as we look at parking in the bigger picture, that sort of certainly is a concern, and we'll look at ways to make that simpler if we're gonna offer that.
Mary Lou?
Yes, first of all, I'm glad that this was scaled down considerably. The first proposal seemed very complicated and unfriendly to me, but I still think it's complicated. And I think it's really important for the community to have full information before this is implemented. And March seems like an early time for me to have this ongoing. And I'm wondering, on the readings, you had a reading with the city council, correct?
Nope.
A reading has not occurred?
It has not occurred. So when we bring it back in March, once we get the feedback, it'll be a couple of months before this, it'll probably be 2 or 3 months before this gets implemented.
Right.
So when there'll be a public hearing as part of the second reading, so there'll be plenty of time for public
good.
input. But also, we're not rushing this at all.
I think that's
And
really
so
important.
Part of that is, again, all feedback's a gift. We get lots of gifts and we just keep getting them, right? And so part of that is, we want to make sure this pilot is meaningful, and it helps us understand some of our assumptions better to say, did it work? Did it result in what we were expecting? So even if it comes before the council in March, this won't be implemented in March. It'll be, probably May or June before that gets implemented.
Can you explain on your second page the streets that are actually going to be included?
Yep. So, and we have the maps up here as well.
Yeah.
So Parrot Ave, roadway only.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you look at the Hancock, Gates, and Washington is all in that little map. And if you go to the other map, you'll see Hanover, Rock, Pearl, Tanner, and Tanner Court in that area right over there by the Foundry. So it's like 2 little clustered neighborhoods, and then Parrot Ave.
Why not Parker? Sorry. We're on this topic.
There's no parking on that
There's
street.
no parking on Parker. And my other question is, why not Brewster? Which is a pain in the butt, because people park on Brewster, and so, I mean, my question, I was raising my hand for before, was why the limitations on some of these? Because I can just see overflow happening.
So it's great. I think part of it is, that's why we're coming back to the council quarterly as well, to say, are there other ones that should be added? I think what we wrestle with is, do we go big, do we go small? We start small, and then as we do this, I think you'll see it, there'll be some logical places where even neighbors will come and say, can we be next? Can you put us part of this program? And it'd be nice to have that sort of logical extension out from these 2 original little areas that we're gonna test out.
I didn't quite finish my question. I wondered if you're going to put kiosks or meters on these streets. The sidewalks at several of these streets are very narrow, so I'm wondering how you're going to manage that.
So right now for the pilot, the only kiosk that we're gonna put is on Parrot Ave. The other ones, they can go to an adjacent, but mostly it's non-residents use the app. Residents don't have to do anything. They don't need an app. They don't even have their phone on them. They just park there. So I think that's part of why.
But you're assuming that people are coming in and using an app.
Well, right now it's 80% is using that anyway, in our, just in general.
Right.
And part of it is we really tried to take the burden off any residents. They don't have to do anything, they just park here, it's fine. Once they're registered, no app, no session, no kiosk, they don't need to do anything. And so we're really looking at 80% of our usage is using the app anyway. And so across the board, and again, we're trying to give good opportunities for residents. Non-residents would have to use the apps in those neighborhoods.
Good.
Just a comment on, to the point of, why not all of these other streets? Looking at the financial analysis, I would assume that the more that we would expand the streets, the more that we would need to expand enforcement, and that would incur extra costs. So personally, I would be in favor of keeping it in a limited scope to start with until we gather all this data, including the finances, because we have our budget this year that is not friendly to expansion. So I think, while I do think, hopefully in the future this grows and expands, I think keeping it in a limited scope for the pilot, because these financials look decent, I think that would be a good place to start.
And again, it's an assumption, so we want to make sure, so it's like, okay, the first quarter is like, was it close? Was it not? A lot of that, there's a lot of unknowns that we want to make sure that. The good thing about a smaller pilot is proof of concept. Is it working the way we expect? Is it not? We'd certainly much rather have people saying, please add us to it than please take us out of it.
Erica?
Around this question of the budget, I see that you've done some analysis about what we think the revenue would be and how much time it would take to enforce, and those are kind of the bigger costs. But if we're talking about installing a kiosks, my understanding are those are not
We're reusing a
inexpensive.
kiosk we have right now. So
Okay.
we already looked at that of just reusing a kiosk that we have, so it's not a big expense for this at all.
I'm just curious about some of these other expenses in terms of signs and kiosks and stuff, and how that, I think we can still probably be revenue neutral with it, but
So
just
if I
wondering
may,
about that, yeah.
I at this point, it's really premature to speak to revenue projections, and, this was just a quick cut at it.
Yeah.
We really need to actually do the pilot, see the response, and see what's going on. In the first few months, we're not gonna be ticketing, we're gonna be giving warnings. So the revenues, for that first couple months is gonna be, offset. So it's a matter of, this is not about revenues, this is about behavior management.
Right.
And achieving what the council's asked us to do. So I would focus less on, is it cost neutral, what are we gonna do? I would focus more on like the program itself at this point.
I fully agree and support the idea of behavior management, and that's our main target. I just wanted to make sure we weren't overlooking major costs that
We are very cognizant of the
changed
costs. I
the
agree-
math
I
that was
appreciate that.
presented to us.
Yeah, great questions.
All right, yes, go ahead. Or
Go ahead.
I had one more question. I saw that this was presented and you received feedback from the Recreation Board. I just wanted to understand if there were any additional considerations for, like, the middle school, the baseball field, like, there's so much in that area around Parrot Ave, like, what did the Recreation Board, say? Are there any other concerns or considerations there?
The first concern was the skate park, which was a lot of focus of the rec board, and then we also had heard about Pierce Island, and then some of the what about during games and other things. So after hearing all that, we decided it would be easier to start with the roadways and see what happens. There might be a need because it might push to those lots, and now those lots are full, and so when you come to a game, you can't park because there's no place. And so we're gonna just evaluate that, and then we'll be back. Again, when we go to expand this to different things, we'll make the rounds again. We'll sort of make sure we get feedback along the way. We just thought it was easier to just start with the roadways and see what happens.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Great. Do you have a comment?
No, actually, I was gonna try and move a motion here to
I know.
adopt the. Right? So I'm gonna move adoption of the resident access parking pilot program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Is there more discussion?
Well, I wanted to know about
Rookie-
enforcement.
Rookie chair, go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to know about enforcement. And what about the parking garages? What about these people who are usually parking on Tanner or Hancock or wherever? Isn't the Foundry Place garage full at this point? Where are these people gonna go? except
So
for
I-
another
so-
street.
So I think that's part of what we'll be evaluating is, do we see an uptick in a garage? Do we
Yeah.
see an uptick somewhere else? And so, those are great questions. I think that's part of why we're gonna keep analyzing this, to report back and say, this is what we noticed. Is it, do we have, some of these neighborhoods, do we have non-residents parking in there?
Right.
That don't wanna park, they'll go to the Foundry instead. We don't know. And so part of that is, we can make some assumptions, but we'll report back on what we notice when it comes to the shift in behavior.
So you'll report back to this committee or the council?
We're gonna report back to the council, but there's nothing wrong with us reporting back and just saying, here's what we noticed about the pilot here too, just to,
Good. Yeah, I think it's important to keep us in the loop.
yeah, I think it's nice. Lots of perspectives help us get this right, so we appreciate just the feedback along the way.
I was gonna say that I like the idea of the pilot. I think a small pilot is a good idea, and this seems like experimental without being too experimental and big enough, but to get some information, but not too big. And I was also just gonna ask to have if we could get a report back. I don't know if we get it quarterly also or every 6 months or something, but I think it'd be great if you guys would be willing to come back and talk to us.
I would be willing to, second, if you decided to add to the quarterly report back, I
Thank
would
you.
support that change.
Thank you. That was my intended amendment to the motion.
Second is in accepting that.
And it would be a pleasure to sort of report back as well. We're gonna report to the council, we should report back as well, because we want to see what we learn along the way, so.
Okay.
Just comment, if I could, on the motion and the underlying amendment. I think oftentimes the challenge that we have in public administration, right, is we let perfect get in the way of good. We have a pilot program here, it's good, and while we've heard from, some residents who have some valid concerns, right, and I don't think, without having studied the issue and looking at this pilot program, that we're able to answer the questions or frankly to support or oppose the positions that we heard even this morning from Mr. Desjardins and Mr. Garzo, right, with respect to resident parking, with respect to workforce parking. So I think this is the method for us to be able to get there. Again, it may not be perfect, but I think it's good and it's a place to start for us to be able to collect some data.
Thank you very much. All right.
Could I make another comment?
Sure.
Quick one. This is so much better than the initial parking program that was tried a couple of years ago. I'm excited to see how this works.
Yes. And that's a testament to Carl and his team. Okay, so we have a motion.
Yes.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you all for that valuable input.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Okay, moving on to old business. Sheep Street, request for additional measures to increase compliance with no parking area near Penn Hollow Street intersection, a request by a resident. Yes, please.
So we put out a traffic camera on Sheep Street for a week, it was in December. And we watched it to see how it went, and we saw people parking in that loading zone about 4 or 5 times a day, never more than 10 minutes at a time. And it didn't have any conflicts with the driveway at the time when we saw it. But since that time, we got more complaints from the residents saying, oh, it's happening again. So we will go out there and put the camera back out, see if it's happening. What we did see on the camera, we've noticed Chief Street is the only street downtown that does not have parking, paid parking. It has a 2-hour time limit, 2 or 3 hour time limit. And what I noticed on the video is that parking on Chief Street is constantly filled. And as soon as one car pulls out, the very next car down that street pulls in, says, I got a free parking spot. It is an amazing amount of traffic on this little tiny street, Chief Street. And I bet they're all looking for that free parking. They're coming in off of Daniel, down, taking a right on to Chief. And if no one is there, then they say, oh, I guess I'll just use the loading zone, if that comes to that. Most of them are running out either going into the building right there in front, right next to the loading zone, or they're coming onto Penn Hollow, most likely going to the bakery based on the packages they're coming back with in the car.
And they didn't bring you any?
No. We will keep an eye on it. We'll monitor it again. Once we get the snowbanks out of there, we can mount a camera again and take a look at things and see how it's happening, because it didn't appear to be too bad at first, but we still get the complaints, so we'll take another look at it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Yes, Mark?
Motion to move, continue monitoring street and report back in the future.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The fire chief had a.
Nope, I was trying to move the motion.
He's looking at his watch, it's 9:30, folks.
I was catching the vibe over there.
I know. All right, Sagamore Avenue, request for traffic calming measures by a resident.
So we've done a lot of traffic monitoring, speed monitoring over the years on Sagamore Ave. About half dozen locations over the past 10 years. And every time we looked at it, the average speeds have been in line with the posted speed limit. So, but we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep monitoring it, you know, as weather improves and speeds typically increase. As the snowbanks go away, we'll continue to monitor it and see what conditions are. Part of the road is state highway, so we would not be able to do anything on that portion of it, but we can monitor the speed still and see what's happening.
Great.
So we'll continue to do that.
Thank you again.
Move to accept.
Second.
Continue.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Informational police monthly accident report.
Morning, thank you.
Good morning.
So looking at the 2025 statistics as a whole for the calendar year, we had 5 total crashes involving bicyclists, 9 involving pedestrians. And looking at the month of December, we had 70 total crashes, 40 of which were reportable, and 2 of those were involving pedestrians.
Okay, thank you. Congress Street construction update?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you, so with November and December, bike ped crashes have surged ahead, making 2025 a banner year for bicycle and pedestrian crashes. Can you comment on what the crashes were in November and December?
In December, both were intersection related. One was at the intersection of Market and Bow Street, and the other one was at the intersection of Court and Pleasant. Strangely, they were both involving left turning vehicles. One struck the pedestrian in the crosswalk, and the second, we were unable to determine whether or not the person was in the crosswalk or not. There was one alleged that they were in the crosswalk, the other alleged that they were not. Blind spot A-pillar appeared to be the most contributing factor in both, according to each operator. So other than that, I don't have any details as to the specifics of the you know, the overall year. You know, I think when we look at bicycle and pedestrian related crashes, I know from history, including 2025, that a lot of the time it is the fault of the pedestrian or the bicyclist, not necessarily the operator of the vehicle or road design or intersection design. A lot of times people don't cross in crosswalks, bicyclists don't follow the rules of the road, which leads to crashes. So, you know, we're always examining trends and patterns, myself along with our crime analysts, to see if there are certain hotspots or intersections or reoccurring themes of contributing factors that we are seeing that we can work towards mitigating. I'm happy to report the number of crashes involving bicyclists are up. The number involving e-bikes and OCEVs are not up and are actually way down. And I think that's in large part to a lot of the work that we've done on that. So I'm happy to see that. But yeah, there isn't a smoking gun, if you will, you know, but each crash is a little bit different. But if there is something certainly intersection related or safety design, it's something I'm always looking at. Eric and I talk on a regular basis when I see crash data and crash reports to see if there's something that the city can do to make something safer. So.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, Congress Street construction update.
Speak to this.
Sure.
So continuing work on the sewer and drainage replacements between Vaughan Mall and Maplewood Ave. That'll be going on for the next few weeks. Then we'll start working from Vaughan Mall up towards Fleet Street intersection. And water system replacement will be the last in April. And there will be some detours for a few days in the next few weeks as they need to cross over Congress Street to the other side with sewer and drain lines. So be prepared, it's still an ongoing construction for several months.
And this is mandated by the state,
Yes,
right?
it's part
This
of
is
the
a mandatory upgrade.
Part of it is dealing with 120-year-old infrastructure.
I saw they're wooden pipes. I saw one.
There are remnants of old wooden pipes there. There are cast iron pipes that were 1890 vintage. There's clay pipes, there's granite sewer. It's, you know, the renovations that have been done in the city over the years did not stretch to those 100-year-old infrastructure. So we are in the process of replacing infrastructure that's very aged.
So it's a nuisance, but it's necessary.
Correct.
Great.
I think we should thank the DPW crew for working through snow
I know.
and freezing temperatures, and they're out there working away. I mean, all the crews in general, I'm talking about, making the city safer.
Hear, hear.
They are.
Cheers to our DPW. Okay, any other discussion? Moving on, PTS committee jurisdiction relative to site plan issues.
Jane Farini is here to speak to us.
Hello.
Jane Green, Legal Department. This came to my attention because Eric asked you folks had done a driveway permit, I guess, a couple of months ago. You were asked by tax to take a review of that. And I'm gonna quote our deputy city manager, all feedback's a gift, right? So I took a look at our ordinance, and clearly land use boards, when this board was originally created, had the concept that land use board would refer questions to parking, traffic, and safety. Most of you know the history of this committee, but as you might recall, if all of what you did went before the city council, the meetings would go till 3 a.m, right? Without your existence, many of these concerns about parking, traffic, and safety were going to the council. So this committee was created as a means by which the public had a voice, and there was thoughtful consideration for the things that you guys deal with, you know, loading zones and speed limits and traffic calming and all sorts of things like that. So, but in the inception as well of this committee, so clearly, you know, TAC had a question about a driveway permit, although it complied with the standards for the permit. My thought was that it's a particularly narrow street, and they might have wanted feedback on, you know, is there on-street parking and that sort of thing. So nothing prohibits a board from, you know, asking you folks for help. The same thing is you as a board can also go to the council on your own initiative and ask, we want to, you know, we want to be involved, or we want a report, to give you a report on this that we've seen. Most of that comes through your minutes, right? You do a lot of work and you have a lot of data in your minutes, and they're approved by the city council, which endorses your action. So you are a separate committee. You aren't technically a subcommittee of the council because a subcommittee is comprised of just councilors, but you are a committee that reports and has a lot of information that is important for the council to basically accept as part of their action. So it's city action, not just the committee action. It becomes city action when they adopt your minutes. And so there's been some complications in years past with certain reports and how those get woven in to minutes and how those get approved by the city council. But I think in recent years, you folks have done a great job with your action sheets, and you let the council know what specifically needs to be voted on. And so I think you've done a wonderful job clarifying, you know, what your actions are, what you're asking of the council, and informing them on things that they need to know about through your minutes. I noticed that Chair Hopkins raised on Monday, how do committees talk better to one another? And isn't it convenient that Councilor Moreau sits, who is on the planning board, sits right near you?
Almost, they can almost hold hands.
Next.
Yeah.
And, I was looking in preparation of this for, our site plan review regulations. Parking is mentioned 50 times, yes, in our site review regulations. So I also think, and as you are chairing this committee, if certain things come up that you feel that parking, traffic, and safety could contribute, that perhaps you weren't included in, then conversations with other city councilors who are serving on other committees is definitely the direction it sounds like the council's going in.
Please.
So that's all I had. Okay.
Discussion?
I heard you comment on that also at Monday night's meeting, and I thought it was important to get this clarified and work done. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and traffic calming application for Cass Street received.
Yes. So over the past week, I have received 5 traffic calming applications from residents of Cass Street. Very unusual because I don't usually get 5 applications in an entire year for the entire city. So I guess there's some concerns on Cass Street. So I just wanted to let the committee know and also to go over the traffic calming program procedures and how we handle these. So it's a 3-phase process. The first phase is the application, which these residents have submitted. And then as part of that, we would go out and collect some speed data, look at other situations in the area that their concern is parking or other issues, and do an assessment of whether or not traffic calming is appropriate for the street. And if we do feel that it is appropriate, then phase 2, we would come up with certain types of traffic calming measures that could be appropriate. And we would, if it's going to affect the wider neighborhood, we would also look for a citizen's petition to make sure that at least 50% of the residents are in favor of doing something like this. And then the third phase, if that gets approved, it would be funding and implementation, where we go come back to this committee for approval, and then the city council for approval, and to get some funding to implement the measures. So that's just a rehash. It's all on the website, this traffic calming program, this flow chart, how to go through it. So we are in that first phase where we've received 5 applications from Cass Street. And once we get some better weather and be able to monitor speeds accurately out there, we will go take a look and see what's happening. It seems to be the entire length, from the 4-way stop at State Street up to Middle Street for speed. So we'll take a look and see if there's something that should be done.
Thank you very much. Anything in discussion? Okay. Moving on to miscellaneous. I guess this is where I would put my request to move the meeting back by 30 minutes. I do toddler daycare drop-off in the mornings, and 8:30 is an unreliable time for me to be here. 9 o'clock is a reliable time for me to be here. So we can think about that, or
Move to establish 9 o'clock as our formal time to meet. And I would work with the clerk's office to adjust the schedule so it reflects on the calendar.
Is that a motion?
Yeah. That was a motion.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah. Any other?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
I have one more miscellaneous, which is I feel like the sidewalk plowing was really good in general after the big storm. I feel like we had to get the roads but I think there was some strategic sidewalk plowing that happened so kids could get to school and then they came back. There are some spots that are barriers. It's like overall a pretty good network, but there are some distinct barriers. I don't know if it's possible to kind of send folks out again or
So if I may.
to spot treat.
So snow operations have been ongoing since that storm.
Yeah.
We have not stopped.
I do not envy you. Thank you. You're doing a great job.
We're currently doing what we call curb cutting in the south end.
Yeah.
We did Gate Street yesterday, we did Marcy Street, sections of Pleasant Street. We're in the McDonough neighborhood today. We're gonna be doing a load out in the downtown tonight, which takes care of some of the streets that we weren't able to get fully cleaned out. So that and Parrott Avenue lot is gonna get cleared off as well as the section of Parrott Avenue. We are continuing to receive feedback from residents relative to challenging sections. So I would encourage you to reach out to DPW 603-427-1530 and let people know. Because we think we're getting it, and foremen are going around with we have all our sidewalks, on map and going through and saying, okay, critical spots. Route 1 was a real critical spot.
Yeah.
That took a long time yesterday.
Yeah.
So we got both sides of Route 1 opened up again.
Good shape, yeah.
We are aware, but if there's pinch points that are particularly challenging, please let us know so that we can get our staff out there as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
Peter's Click and Fix,
Click and Fix is
available for that as well?
Yep, Click and Fix can be
So
used for
people
that
know,
as well.
so people are aware.
Yep, thank you, that's a good point.
I live in Elmwood Park, so in the neighborhoods, there's a lot of snow that's piled up in people's lawns. And so just to tell the public that, use the Click and Fix in the spring, and the city does come out, and they do, you don't call them repairs, do you?
Restoration.
Restoration, so.
So, and to speak further to that, snow damage happens. Staff are out there all hours of the night, and mistakes happen. They turf up the side of the road, they could hit mailboxes, things get damaged. Please report that as well through either Click and Fix or through a phone call to that 603-427-1530 number. And we put that on a list of restoration. If it's an immediate need, we'll send somebody out immediately. But typically it gets put on a list that we come back in the spring and we do restoration.
Just one thing, on my email this morning, I saw that there's an Elwyn Park meeting on the 18th. Is it 6 o'clock? Yeah. At the Dondero School regarding sidewalks and safety issues of that area, is that
The
right?
first phase of construction, so it's
First
about
phase.
that, it's about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you all so much for your time and patience
Thank
with
you.
me.
Good job.
Move to adjourn and
Move
someone
to adjourn.
seconded and we all approved.
Yay.
Any
Awesome.
opposed? Great. Thank you.